The presenting sponsor for OnEducation is Classcraft. We're excited to announce Classcraft's new story mode, which makes it easy for educators to harness the power of stories. Episodes 1 and 2 of Season 1 are ready for you and your students to play today, and it's completely free. To learn more about Classcraft and the new story mode, simply visit classcraft.com/oneducation.
Twitter is like the match.com for educators.
Welcome to OnEducation, part of the Education Podcast Network. I am Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glenn Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We will debate whether we should be seeking corporate sponsorship for our classrooms, discuss the battle between GivenKit and Quizlet, and why we should ban the red pen. Our guest this week is educator and author Adam Welcome.
So are you in any hockey pools? You wouldn't be in any hockey pools. Are you in any football pools? Soccer pools?
Is a hockey pool like fantasy hockey?
Yeah.
Okay. I played a lot of fantasy football and basketball and baseball, actually, back in the days. This is the first year I'm not playing fantasy football, actually. And it was just because in the previous years, I wasn't giving it my all. I wasn't giving it the time commitment that's necessary to be able to go ahead and do that. I have a friend that we did it for probably 20-some years that we were doing it. So you have a hockey pool draft. Do you guys do it live?
Yeah. So cool. We've done it in person. It's to be honest, it's the best thing about the hockey pool is the draft. I instantly feel crummy about my team and about my chances. Okay. So, I mean, going to the actual pool, the draft night is significantly the best moment in the whole thing.
So the draft is the best moment.
Yeah, totally. But what makes it even worse, at least last night, was that I quit drinking. So I couldn't even have a beer at the pool draft anymore, and it's like, this is less fun now.
Oh, so that took some of the fun out of it.
It was like I'm not drinking, and my team sucks. So it's really all the bad things, right?
I do know what you mean as far as about the drafting. That's actually why I played a lot of sports games growing up, and now I still play some of them, but not as much as I did. So I played Madden, and of course I played FIFA a lot. And actually, one of the best parts was what you're talking about is the draft, like to throw all the players in a pool and then draft back a team so you can basically create a team from scratch, that kind of stuff. Those are fun things that we used to do as far as those types of things. And then fantasy football and baseball and hockey, obviously here, is the epitome of that, where you get to pick the best players and make your own team.
So transitioning from pretending to do sports to actually doing athletic kind of activities, so I'm like all in on cycling. Just bought like a huge TV for my basement to play the Zwift thing in my basement. Got a big TV in front of me now instead of my laptop. And you went to hot yoga last night.
We did the hot yoga last night, my wife and I, and
that's awesome.
It actually is one of the most, it definitely was really hot. Actually, when you enter in there, it just felt warm. It didn't feel super extremely hot, but this was also one of the easiest sessions. It was called a rejuvenation session. So it wasn't the intense ones. So the temperature is down. The temperature is down, and the activity that you're doing is supposedly down too. And my goodness, I've done a lot of things that were physically active types of things in my life. Trained for a marathon, ran a marathon, did lift weights and whatever might be, and played several sports. This was right at the top of a challenging 1 hour plus activity, where it was just challenging your physical body, but then there's this kind of people that have done yoga understand this, and this is my actual first time as a class. So Nicole, my wife, has taught me and ran me through a series of moves, and that was great because I needed that in order to be able to even know what was actually happening. And I was still lost half the time. I didn't know what I was supposed to do next. But anyway, it was so dang challenging as far as the different postures and different movements that you were supposed to be doing. And then the room temperature then starts accentuating how difficult things are. And you're just pouring. I mean,
really,
pools of sweat are coming down.
wow.
And you go basically through the beginning of a workout to the really high point, the intense part of the workout, and then you cool off all in one session. Really puts you through the ringer, both, like I said, physically, and then there's like this spiritual component to it that I wasn't expecting. So it's kind of a meditative state that you're doing some of the things. It was fantastic. So today we went back and signed up for 30 days, baby. Nice. So I'm paid up for 30 days. I'm going. Yeah, I'm gonna go and then see how it keeps going. I highly recommend it to anybody and everybody to go do it and at least experience it one time, because it is intense.
That's awesome. So speaking of putting people through the ringer,
yeah.
So I was playing Minecraft the other day, and Isaac was watching, I guess, a YouTuber downstairs, and they were doing some sort of a hardcore, a couple of video series on doing hardcore mode. And he's like, so I don't think you could last like a day in hardcore mode, Dad. Like, and he did it all snotty. Like, I'm like, shut up, kid. And he was like, it's like, you brat. Are you kidding me? Do you even know who you're talking to here? Is basically what I said to him. Right. Yeah, he totally threw the gauntlet down on me. He's like, I don't think you could last. So I'm like, really? Okay. So not only have I lasted, but I'm crushing Minecraft hardcore mode. And to make it even more fun, you and Steve Isaacs and I have started a Minecraft hardcore mode server.
Yeah.
And we've started to play Minecraft hardcore mode. We played for about an hour a couple days ago together.
Yeah, people don't understand what the hardcore
there
means,
too.
Like, let them know, what does that mean? So there's regular Minecraft and there's survival mode. But when you die...
there's creative mode and there's survival mode.
So we're talking about survival. You die, you can come back, you respawn, it's called. You come back to life.
Yes.
But in this mode, different.
Yeah. If you die, you're done. Like there is no recovery.
It says game over, like the old days.
It is game over. So you have one life to live, and you gotta kind of make it happen.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to die in Minecraft survival, to be honest. There's things happening all of the time that you like. Steve, I'm gonna throw him under the bus. I don't care. Steve Isaacs totally died.
Yes, he did.
In our first our first hour. In the first hour, Steve died.
He was
love you, Steve.
He was getting a little too confident in his abilities, and then a creeper snuck up on him, and boom.
Like, if you don't have any armor, which you won't if you play proper survival, you won't have armor for at least a little while, unless you get super lucky with iron. And so, like, a creeper, if you don't see a creeper, if you're turned the other way and then you turn around and boom, a creeper is like right on you,
Toast.
You're dead. Like, you're done. And because they don't make any noise, you don't know that they're there until they're right on top of you. And then it's it's like, hardcore mode is hardcore.
Yes, it is.
So you have to treat it a little bit more carefully.
We're still alive, both of us.
Yes. So, I won't die.
We're going to continue. See how long we can last.
I was the only super, like, I came really close. I came actually within a half a heart of dying.
Ooh.
So one of the things I didn't realize about Endermen was that if you look at them from even like very far away, it triggers them. Like, there was a distance, like they was far, and I looked at it because I was like, oh, there's an Enderman. And Isaac's like, turn away, he's screaming at me. And it just came right after me. And so what I did was I backed myself into my house in the corner of my house so that it couldn't like get behind me or anything. And I just kept swinging and swinging and swinging and swinging and swinging. And I eventually killed it with a half a heart left.
Whoa.
So, but Isaac
close.
was sitting right beside me and he was losing his mind because he totally thought I was cooked. He thought it was hysterical. And then I survived because like, I'm a survivor.
I'm good.
Yeah.
That rocks.
So it was it's pretty fun, and I'm having a blast in Minecraft hardcore mode. I think it's exactly the challenge I was looking for. And this kid doesn't know who he's talking to.
He doesn't know who his dad is.
Right, I'm gonna sit him down a little. So Minecraft is definitely experiencing a resurgence.
Big time.
I mean, everyone is seeing it. The numbers are clearly showing it. Now, let's be clear. I think it's worth prefacing that Minecraft was never not, like, over the last 5 years, it's always still been the number one most played game in the world by a giant margin. There are games that have hype, like Fortnite and Apex and, anything else, Overwatch, whatever. And you'll see spikes in numbers when games come out, like Destiny 2 or whatever. Yeah. The primacy of Minecraft was never even close to in doubt. I think the average daily players for Minecraft is something like 30 million people a day.
That's insane.
It's a giant number.
It's still going. And
it's
now
a giant number. And it's never not been a giant number.
Yeah.
So that being said, the number is actually getting bigger again. It might have dipped down into like the low 20s millions of people, but it's like coming back again. And so Minecon was this week. And the biggest news that came out of Minecon, at least in my mind, was now there's lots of cool things happening with Minecraft. I love the shaders, the new shaders update that's coming out that's going to make your sky and your shadows more like advanced if you have like an NVIDIA card, which I do. So it's going to look super pretty in your Minecraft worlds. I'm pumped about that because I have a little bit of an aesthetic flair to me when I like to play. I like to design nice things. Yeah, just ask Steve. Steve hates it, in fact. But Minecraft Earth. So we were wondering when the launch date was for this, and it's in fact going to be in October. Woo! So early access for Minecraft Earth is coming in early October. I don't know exactly when, and I think it's going to be kind of a progressive rollout, which was similar to like Pokemon Go. So we'll see when it hits the United States and when it hits Canada. But this is the AR Minecraft game where you're going to be able to build things right like in your backyard. It's going to be rad.
Yeah, it's going to be a completely new take on it. I'm super excited by it. I hope that it does live up to its hype. But these games are super popular. I know a lot of people go like, oh, what happened to Pokemon Go? It's still popular. I mean, all of these kind of games, Ingress, for example, a lot of people have never even heard of this game. Super popular around the world. It's not even just, let's say, the United States or North America. It's around the world that people play these games, these augmented reality games. And Minecraft Earth, I mean, it's the popularity of Minecraft that you were just talking about, plus people that like augmented reality games. Whoa. It's a good combo, man.
It's going to be awesome. I'm pretty excited about it. We'll see, but I mean, if it lives up to even half of the hype and the demo and the way it's looked like when they've shown it off,
yeah,
oh boy, it's going to be something else.
It's going to get us out of our seats and out and about, going and doing stuff. When we're at different conferences, we're going to be out there building in Minecraft. We should build
like a Minecraft like shelter over top of our conference booth table that people can like look at and come into. Well, that might be.
That's a cool idea. We'll do that for sure.
If you're listen, guys, if you have a podcast and you're listening to this, I'm gonna come after you if you copy my idea. Don't even think about it. That's my idea. All right. So listen, Quizlets had a bad day. This is a little timely because it's literally happening. So this is the 30th of September. And this happened today, and it looks like it's ended today.
Yes.
But we wanted to
Thank
talk
goodness.
about it today because we promised some airtime on this because I was pretty angry this morning about it all.
Yeah.
So it looks like what happened. There was an issue between Gimkit and Quizlet that Gimkit was allowing people to import Quizlet quizzes into Gimkit, and it had there was some proprietary Quizlet data, specifically things like their logo and stuff like that was on Gimkit.
Yeah.
That apparently allegedly was on there without Quizlet's permission, or at least there was no agreement in place. That's kind of Quizlet's position on this. And so Quizlet basically served them almost like a cease and desist.
I know.
This morning, and that's stupid.
Yeah.
So like it was a super bad day for Quizlet. Everyone, I think, from what I can tell, got on the phone and got it resolved. But this would have been bad, right?
Oh, absolutely. I can't understand, except for that they see Gimkit as a competition, why Quizlet would have done this. But in the end, it ended up working itself out. And if people don't know the story of Gimkit, Josh is actually in one of our episodes, and he's a high school kid who created this game because he wanted a better Kahoot. He said, I think we can do better than this as far as a game. And he created Gimkit, and it's so awesome, super fun. And his company is actually growing significantly. They've hired people now. It's not just him and his teacher, who were the first people who created the game. And they're just doing great. They're still tiny, though. I mean, I think they have one employee or one or two. They don't have like a huge team or anything. And they were using this, which is a significant improvement, to get the Quizlet sets and then be able to import them into Gimkit. That's a huge improvement. Instead of having to type in each one of the vocab words and definitions, for example. So it ended up working itself out, though. So they had a conversation. People put pressure on Quizlet. It looked like on Twitter, and Quizlet did the right thing, which is good. I love both of the things.
Yeah, everyone wins because listen, the real net of this, if it had went through, was that everyone was going to lose. Gimkit was going to lose. Quizlet had a PR nightmare today, I'm sure, and it's like and then the teachers and the students all lose out. It just makes everyone worse. And so, I don't know if money changed hands or whatever, but it seems like it all worked itself out, and that's what was the most important thing. Because obviously, this was about business. This was about Gimkit growing and probably taking away some of Quizlet's, money in terms of subscriptions and memberships and whatever. At least it seems like that.
It seemed like that was the thing. Yes.
So everyone came out on top, hopefully, and everyone's happy. It seems. So that's a good conclusion. This is a really strange idea. Should we be seeking corporate sponsorships for our classroom? So are you talking about the Tostitos science room, Glenn?
Yeah, the Tostitos science room, and the I'm trying to think of other good
show title, by the way.
Yeah. That was a great one. No, what I was someone had posted something on Twitter kind of related to this, but not really. I mean, they were just basically saying, I would be willing to take on a corporate sponsor in order to be able to fund A, B, or C, whatever it was. And I was thinking, well, why don't we do this? And I know that there's some bad implications of this, but as a topic of discussion, it's really interesting because we already do this at public schools, especially when it relates to like gymnasiums, football stadiums, even libraries, and big buildings, basically, kind of like what you would maybe see at a university kind of thing, where you would have a Tostitos bowl, whatever
You've
it
seen
might
the
be.
size of those football stadiums in Texas?
That's what I'm talking about. And it already exists currently. So why wouldn't we be able to then say, you know what, I want to brand my classroom and brand it with, for example, and I'm going to throw out a company like Starbucks, and Starbucks would help to fund just me in general. And I would put up some Starbucks logos around my classroom and say funded by Starbucks, right? And people would go probably ballistic about something like, something like that. But then you go,
You think?
this is our world though, right?
Yeah.
And part of the reason why you would do that is the exact same reason why people are going out to Twitter and other social media for clear the Lisp type of agenda, where you're trying to basically find some classroom supplies or those things that you need. And I had a perfect example of someone that already did this, and her name is Kayla Dornfield. And Kayla was the 2019 North Dakota Educator of the Year. But before this, she was like famous, if you're going to be called famous in quotes. She was in a New York Times article that was written about her classroom because she basically sought out corporate sponsorship and was one of the first people to have amazing flexible learning spaces, right? Those ones like we see, remember we were talking about the envy between classes, and she has this beautiful classroom and continues still to this day. But the way that she funded that classroom was through corporate sponsors. So then there was this clouding of the lines between, should we be allowing corporations and allowing entire classrooms? Well, in this school, they allowed her to do that. She actually has become the flexible seating type of guru. Speaks on this topic all the time. And it's an interesting discussion to at least be had if we're never going to really fully reach the ability to fully fund education, public education, then maybe we should be seeking out corporate sponsorships and branding our classrooms with Tostitos or Walmart or whatever else it might be.
I could see the value of the Walmart student lounge. No. I could see the value. So I've been trying to think of like an actual realistic case like that could be used, that I could make with a straight face and say, this seems
I've
to make sense.
I've got a real case for you. For example, I work in Sauk Rapids, Minnesota. There's a bunch of local businesses that are in Sauk Rapids. If you had a local business sponsor that would help you to basically make, for example, our media center space, our library, in our high school, more modern, let's say, call it with better furniture, let's call it like whatever it took to be able to do the paint, maybe new carpet, etc., whatever might be the aesthetics. And then you branded it with their name somewhere might be. That actually was an idea that we've at least thrown around to go to a local business and be able to take that, you know what I mean? Promote their business, but then also be able to go ahead and say, your dollars are helping this become a reality. And it happens all the time with people, donors, helping out to build sports arenas and sports stadiums and things.
Sure.
Why not help it in an educational type of setting? So that would be my closest example. Though my wife, if she ever listens to this, will punch me in the arm because she is so against this whole concept of having corporations involved in this entire thing. So
so the use case that I've kind of come up with is a company like Epic Games, for example. So Epic Games makes Fortnite, and more specifically in this scenario I'm thinking of, Epic Games makes Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine is a video game engine. It's one of the best video game engines in the world. It's also very user friendly in the sense that you can learn Unreal Engine, with dedication and resilience. You can learn Unreal Engine quite a bit easier than a lot of other engines. So if Unreal Epic Games was to, for example, sponsor a computer science class. Let's say Stephen Rayo, our friend Stephen Rayo, is a computer science teacher. Unreal Engine sponsors, Epic Games sponsors Stephen Rayo's class. Stephen uses, they bring in a whole bunch of cool new computers. Steve gets a whole bunch of new computers, gets access to a whole bunch of cool Fortnite curriculum or whatever that's coming out, and hint, and
sounds like a good deal.
It sounds like a good deal, and gets access to kind of curriculum related to Unreal Engine, and uses Unreal Engine to teach programming and game design. That locks in students. It's student facing, and it might sound, this is why I'm even still having a hard time, stomaching it, because really it's like a prolonged commercial. You're advertising Fortnite to kids, and you're advertising Unreal Engine to kids as the gateway towards, learning to program. And you know what? There are worse things in the world than gearing a kid up to do game design and programming using Unreal Engine, right? There are a lot worse ways that we lure kids into products than this, but certainly that is a use case that I could, if someone told me that Epic Games was sponsoring Stephen Rayo's class for, going to give him $25,000 to have a top of the line computer science classroom, I'd say that makes sense to me. That's a cool deal. I would probably have taken that deal if I had the opportunity to take that deal.
It's hard not to take those deals. I mean, if your school would approve it, it's hard to go like, well, I mean, I'm sure
they're they're cracking down on this stuff too, though, right? Like since the clear the list stuff, a lot of boards and districts developed policies, right, around not accepting outside funds. Like some districts were kind of caught off guard with this clear the list stuff, and all of a sudden formed policies that weren't in place before about you can't get donations for your classroom from Twitter. So it makes stuff like getting a sponsorship a little complicated too, right?
Definitely. It's an interesting idea, and I want to hear what other people, and maybe other people can tell us about. Maybe you already have some sort of deal with a local business or a specific corporation, maybe even Tostitos, and you already have that in place. And let us know like what you think, or if you think that this is the most horrible idea ever, let us know why, because I think it's a discussion that needs to be had.
It's an interesting topic for sure. So the last thing on our list here that was super interesting to come across our desks this week was something we talk about all the time. Like, I mean, we are definitely the most political education podcast.
Big time.
And, I like so we talk about, this idea of free college tuition, and how, how important this could be, how game-changing this could be for society. And, we've seen some states get on board, like New York State and Tennessee, that are offering, within their state, some subsidies and stuff like that. But I guess what's happening now in New Mexico is that they're promising 4 years of tuition to any student. Is that right?
Any student that's interested in attending any public university, and the tuition will be free for those 4 years. And it's huge. It's not a specific level of income. It's anybody that wants to attend. And that may scare people, whatever, left, right, where they might be like, this is not that good of an idea. But the concept that we have a paywall, we talk about video games all the time. We have a paywall to further our education in the United States. Do. Yeah, and that paywall is a drastic, extreme line, and many of us borrow money to get past that paywall and really be able to start our careers and be able to get going. And I actually attended school in New Mexico. So I went to school in Roswell, New Mexico in high school, and I graduated from there. And I'm looking at this and going, wow, that would have been so game changing for my life if I would have been able to attend a university like New Mexico State in Las Cruces, or the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, and be able to go in and seek out a degree and still be able to teach Spanish. And I wouldn't be burdened with this ginormous debt that I have right now, now that I'm 23 years later.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
20, it's actually more than that because I'm 43 now. So it's 25 years later is when I started accumulating debt at age 18 to be able to go to school.
Yeah.
And then now 25 years later, of course, all the interest builds up. You have this ginormous debt, and that's become a part of who I am. I'm carrying that, that debt with me no matter what.
And it's going to keep people in the state too.
Yeah. Oh, big time. Yeah. Because I actually went to school in Colorado. I figured,
why go
it's
back?
Expensive to come, thing. I could just go to Colorado, and I went to school in Colorado, keep people within the state. When you attend a school in a state, probably the retention level of keeping those people within the state to work in that state to bring those industries up is probably really high too.
It's huge.
So it all pays off for itself in the end. And I know that there's people that have arguments against it, and some of them that I've heard are our kids aren't ready, or some kids are, they're irresponsible, etc. I was super irresponsible at age 18, at age 19 and 20 and 21. I mean, all of those ages. But that doesn't mean that we're going to restrict people from not being able to attend the university.
It's a terrible argument for restricting kids from access to education.
I totally agree. It's like, we got to have something attached to that. Got to attach some kind of big money figure so that they can know what it feels like. It's like
skin in the game. Skin in the game is the stupidest red herring for this that I've ever seen. Like, it is do we really want to attach a metaphor like that to the future of our children? Yeah. Come on, give your heads a shake. Skin in the game is the stupidest thing that I've ever heard. It's such a terrible argument.
You don't even, though, Mike, we don't even realize, by we, I mean, at 18 or 19 years old, you don't even realize that borrowing this money is going to result in X, later on. It doesn't even matter if you get it explained. If you have the ability to borrow it because you're like, well, I want to attend university, I'm going to borrow this money. And they're like, yeah, you do understand you're going to have to pay this back. We're like, yeah, I know. Hopefully, this leads somewhere along thing. And you borrow the money. It's not like it creates kind of a sense of urgency. Yeah, exactly right.
When we come back, the dreaded red pen, it's always seemed on the verge of going away for good, but like a bad cold that I still have 3 months later, it seems to keep sticking around. We'll talk about whether or not we think it's time to ban the red pen for good and why, so stay with us.
OnEducation is brought to you by Pick My Kid. Pick My Kid is an automated dismissal solution that cuts car line time in half. It engages parents with the Parent app by being able to change dismissal routines right from their phone. Friends, that means no more front office calls. Pick My Kid is an affordable solution for schools and removes dismissal stress for parents, teachers, and staff. For more information, visit pickmykid.com. That's PIK mykid.com. OnEducation is also brought to you by Taylor Ed. As teachers, meeting the needs of each and every student in today's classroom is time-consuming, complicated, and just overwhelming. Taylor Ed makes differentiation in math effortless through curated resources, smart student grouping, and student insights beyond proficiency. Sign up today using the promo code OnEducation and receive 3 months free on us. Visit taylor-ed.com for more information.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. The red pen, I guess, is synonymous with marking up essays. I'm sure I've had my fair share of essays scratched up with a red pen and giant lines scribbled through them. There's always talk, I guess, on on the Twitters about this sort of thing, about, you know, whether this is an actual proper kind of way to do assessment. Glenn, do you think it's time to ban the red pen? And if you do, which I think you probably do, why?
For sure, we need to just ban it as it says here. Trevor McKenzie on Twitter wrote, just thinking more and more that the red pen should be banned as an assessment tool. And I totally agree. And we're so far into the 2019 and we're still using this tool that was used to be able to mark up, like you said, any types of papers, or in this case, assessments, to show a student that, yes, they got something wrong. And there's been definitely research done that shows that that type of markup just creates this really negative connotation for the students to be able to see their papers. And it really, the only thing that they notice on these assessments are those red marks. So you're not even looking for the learning part for a student. You ignore the learning. All you're looking for is, like, you see all the red and whatever was red, and then you see that red grade up at the top. And that's all you learn. That's all you're getting from it. You're not really looking to see what answers you missed or whatever it might be, or what learning can still take place. It's kind of a final boom. Here it is. It's done. This was your learning, and this is your final grade. And so it symbolizes that kind of a finale, definitely a summative assessment kind of a thing, where you don't get to continue your learning. And that sucks as far as for a student. And I think many students then just fixate on those items, and then they stop looking at anything else. And how could you blame them? And again, it's not that hard to shift that and then say, don't use that color, number one. But then the way that you assess, let it be a growing experience, as you talk about too, Mike, all the time about, we all are making mistakes all the time, and we should be taking risks at school. We shouldn't say it's a one-time and done type of activity. And if you have these types of assessment tools, though, we are not demonstrating that as teachers. We may say, hey, in this class, you're allowed to take risks, but if you use that as the way you mark up things, it's actually a finale. It's like, nope, this is it. Nothing happens past this point, which is just not a good way.
So it's not just the color, even though the color is problematic in and of itself.
Yeah.
But the notion of aggressively marking up written work, for example, is problematic. So it's the metaphor of a red pen, and then also the color of a red pen itself. There's two problems here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I guess my thing is, I don't have a lot of experience with this as an educator. I didn't do a lot of written work because I was teaching computer science. But I understand the idea of it being demotivational. Certainly, especially if you're just swaths of red pen all over someone's assignment. I mean, that's pretty vicious.
Yeah,
and I would imagine that for a struggling writer, especially one that's kind of a little bit sensitive with their struggles to write and is aware of it and conscious of it, thinking that kind of grade 5 or 6 student, right? That's kind of that age where they could potentially take offense to having, just this red pen all over the place on their work. And I think that the best takeaway from this is what you said before, which there are probably better ways to do this overall. That there are more meaningful interactions we could have with our students to assess, what they're doing, instead of marking it up on a paper and then handing it back to them, where you can have conversations and engage in discussion and give verbal feedback, for example.
Absolutely.
Work with them, and at the same time, even be in a Google Doc side by side or something like that. There are I think that there are lots of really interesting opportunities when you start putting meaningful thought into what else you might be able to do instead of, slashing a red pen all across the page. So hopefully people just spend a little bit of time thinking about, what they're doing there and how to do it, and whether, writing up someone's document is the best way to move forward. When we come back, we have a great guest. We'll be joined by Adam Welcome. So stay with us.
OnEducation is brought to you by FreshGrade. FreshGrade have always been known as digital portfolio innovators, but FreshGrade Next is the all-new learning network made for modern teachers and tech-savvy students with amazing new student-driven learning journals. Students can upload their own content and conduct ongoing self-reflection to create their own record of learning progress. Integrated, simple, and powerful. To learn more about FreshGrade Next and sign up for your free account, visit freshgrade.com.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Our guest today is a speaker, teacher, and the author of 3 books, Run Like a Pirate, Kids Deserve It, and Empower Our Girls. Welcome to the podcast, Adam. Welcome, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Before we get started, maybe give us kind of the Adam Welcome 101. We'd love to hear a little bit more about you and your background, how you got into education, but what's led you also to your pathway to joining us on the podcast today.
My dad was a second grade teacher for 35 years in the Bay Area, some pretty tough schools. And I just kind of grew up in education, and I snowboarded a lot in college, didn't go to class too much, and graduated and didn't know what I wanted to do, and had a couple of false starts. And at 23 years old, decided to get my credential and just got into teaching. And then I got into administration because my first principal was a nice guy, but he didn't do anything. And I always felt that our school could be so much better. And you can talk about something and you can complain about it, or you can try to be the solution. And I went and got my admin credential and told myself, you know what, I'm going to try to do it better. And then I actually went back to where I went to school, and I was the principal at the school where I went to school.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Nice.
After a couple of years, I almost left education because I was so frustrated with the ecosystem of education and the red tape and the politicians and the bureaucracy and the no, you can't do that because we've always done it this way. So we got to keep doing it this way because that's the way we've always freaking done it. And my wife sat me down. This was about 10 years ago. And she said, honey, what can you do to stay in education? And I was like, well, there's this thing called Twitter, and I've been on, but I've been kind of a stalker, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to kind of see what I can do. And that was the turning point for me 10 years ago. I had a blog, and I had been blogging, and I just turned up the heat, and I just spent hours on Twitter connecting, building, learning, sharing. And that really was what saved my career. And after I was a principal, I went off to be a director of innovation for a large school district, 50 schools, 35,000 students, and basically coolest job in the world. I just did whatever I wanted all day. I had a team of teachers, and we just did, we did professional development, coding, robotics, classroom design, you name it, we did it. And in that time, Todd Nesloni and I met over Twitter, obviously, because Twitter is like the Match.com for educators. It's where you just kind of meet people, and then you see if you like people, and then you take the conversation off of Twitter offline. And we wrote Kids Deserve It. And then 2 years ago, my speaking just like absolutely was taken off and on a tear. And a lot of things, doors open, and I'm somebody that walks through open doors. Yeah. And the door can be open, but you got to walk through. And I just kept walking. So I left my district job, and I've just been doing this full time for the last 2 years, about 65, 70 speaking events a year, and still writing and consulting and leadership coaching. And have my own podcast, and this is the third podcast I've been interviewed on in the last week. So I get the podcast love, and I actually don't even really like to call myself a speaker. I still feel that I'm a teacher, because if I can teach the people that I'm speaking to, that's really going to change them. I don't like the motivational and the inspirational, because in November or February, and if you heard me in August, are you really still thinking about me if I just motivated you? Probably not. But if I can teach you and change your mindset to in turn change your classroom and your practices, or if you're a leader to change how you think about your entire school or your entire district, to me, that's a job well done. So I think of myself as a teacher when I go and travel the country and speak with ed tech conferences or school districts or leadership groups. So that's kind of where I am sitting right now in 2019. And I live just outside San Francisco, and the most expensive place to live in the entire country, probably. And I coach my kids' soccer teams, and, I'm a dad. I just living my life. So that's kind of the Adam Welcome Cliff Notes version, since you asked.
Love it. Adam, in my current role, I have the privilege of also working with teachers as an instructional coach. And you recently posted a video about making mistakes. And in the video, you say, the areas in my life where I'm not making any mistakes, I'm not trying anything new. Can you expand upon that and share how you would apply this to teaching?
So I have a lot of random thoughts at 4 a.m. when I'm running the streets of my hometown. And before I answer that question, Glenn, I like to think of myself as the educator that talks about things that most people don't want to talk about, or the person that brings up something that other people go, ooh, yeah, I don't really want to talk about that because it may be controversial, or I might hurt people's feelings or whatever. I'm like, let's talk about it, because that's how we get better. If it's mistakes, or if it's egos, or if it's whatever it is. And I think that's true. I mean, if everything is soft serve ice cream and unicorns, we're not getting better, because that means we're doing the same old thing that we've been doing for 25 years, teach for 25 years, just don't teach the same year 25 times. Like you gotta be different. You gotta think different. Our kids are different. It's a new economy with new jobs. We can't expect our kids when they leave school to be problem solvers and to be creative and to edit and do everything else if we don't give them the opportunities to do that in school. And how do we let kids do that? Well, we model for that. We model for them. I mean, something that I'm doing right now is I do video and stuff, and I'm trying to make better video content, and I make a lot of mistakes. I was editing a video today, and I was like, this sucks. How do I make it better? And I'm going on YouTube, but when you make mistakes, that's when you go find resources to learn from. And when I was a principal, I always wanted to be the unprincipal. I wanted to do it how nobody had ever done it, because I knew it had to be done differently. Because our grandparents want their principal back, because leadership has to be different and the classroom has to look different. So I would say pick one lesson. Pick one lesson.
Yeah.
Don't pick an entire subject matter. Don't redesign your entire classroom. Pick one lesson that you've been doing for a long time, or pick a lesson that is your hardest lesson to teach. Where do you have to do the most review? Where do the kids do the worst on the test? That means, hey, that is ripe for opportunity and innovation. And also, don't think that you know everything, because I'm going to tell you what, you don't. The kids know a lot. The smartest person in your classroom is the entire classroom, because if they have a Chromebook and an iPad with an internet connection, everybody has access to the same information. Information is commoditized. It's what you do with that information. So pick that one lesson, or pick that one area of your classroom and just try something new. Because if you're a secondary teacher and what you tried second period doesn't work, do you know what you do for third period? You just change it a little bit. Fourth period, you just change it a little bit. Elementary school teacher, you just change it after recess or after lunch. Most things never get done because they don't get started. People don't start with a change, and then they don't make mistakes that they learn from. But then also look around at your classroom. We do too much to kids. We need to do more with kids. Hey, class, we're learning about the Ottoman Empire. You know what? To keep it real, I don't like teaching about the Ottoman Empire because it's kind of boring. How do you think we can make it a little bit more exciting? Here are the tools at our disposal that we can learn from. We got some Chromebooks, we got some iPads, we got some robots, we got some cardboard. You know what? Let's build a 3D version of cardboard of the Ottoman Empire. And then we can get a robot and we can code the Ottoman Empire and we can learn that way. You, Mike, go get an iPad, videotape the whole thing. We can make a YouTube video about this. Kids are going to be like, what's up? Let's learn about the Ottoman Empire.
Yep.
Not just reading it out of a textbook said no kid ever. Or here's another worksheet with a different font about the Ottoman Empire said no kid ever. Yeah, that's how you do it. The biggest thing is you got to get over yourself. You got to get over what you don't know. You got to get over what you're uncomfortable with. You got to get over the fact that you will make mistakes. You got to get over the fact that your kids may know more about you than some of these things, and that's totally okay. And if you can't get over that, you got a big problem. Then you will not move forward and you will not make change. And you're going to be stuck in the same thing, teaching the same thing 20 times for 20 years the same old way. And your kids will not be ready for the world that they live in. Not the world that we grew up in. The world that they are growing up in is completely different.
100%. 100%. So I've been taking some pretty serious steps lately to improve my health. I decided to quit drinking last week. Dumped everything. I'm at the longest I've been without a drink today. I think it's 9 days today that I've been without a drink in 15 years. And I'm exercising a ton now, virtually every day, and sometimes twice a day. A lot of what pushed me to go after this and to really stop, and you've actually kind of mentioned this already, and I actually mention it when I do speaking as well, is the difference between talking about doing things and then actually doing them. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge difference between those two things, and we can talk all day, but at some point, if you actually want to do them, you'll do them. So I talk a lot about losing weight, but I didn't actually want to. And so I started to, kind of put my money where my mouth was a little bit. And part of the inspiration was seeing folks like you, and there's a couple other folks that share kind of their exercise on Twitter. And I started to think, this is a critical aspect of not just, life and being healthy and happy, but I think it, of course it has a huge impact on your ability to do your job, to be an effective educator, to be an effective father and an effective, person. Of course, your health is related to your life as a teacher, right?
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah. And, so you share this stuff on Twitter, you share your physical activity, and I've been starting to do that too. Because I'm curious, I want to ask you about that specifically. Is there intentionality behind, the reasons for you sharing your physical activity on Twitter? I find for me, it helped me remain accountable. People, like, I was literally putting myself out there, and I actually had someone just a couple weeks ago go, I saw you didn't exercise today, Mike.
Gotcha.
And right. And I was like, that was exactly what I wanted, though. That was exactly what I wanted. And so I got people DMing me when they saw that I hadn't exercised. I suspect the reason why you do stuff like that is possibly to motivate others as well. Like is there an intentionality between the exercise and the sharing of it that you think is important?
Yeah, well, one of my books I wrote is called Run Like a Pirate, and it's a book about running, but it's not about running. And Mike, if you don't have a copy, DM me your address and I'll send you a copy. Nice. And before I wrote that book because I ran 13 marathons in 1 year and a 24-hour race, and I wanted to document and I wanted to share, because I can't tell you how many people have read that book and then message me and say they lost 60 pounds or 100 pounds. And I think if people can see me run a marathon or run 100 miles, which I've done, like you can run a mile, and a mile's great. And people tell me, I only run a mile. I'm like, no, don't take out the only. I ran a mile because running a mile or walking a mile is better than not doing anything. It's better than sitting on the couch and just, doing nothing. And I've always been an athlete, and I've always really tried to take care of myself. I've been a vegetarian for like 12 years, and I've been a vegan for 3 years. And I actually too just stopped drinking. I turned 40 in July, and I told my wife, I'm not going to drink this year. And I haven't had a drink since July 5th. And, I feel great. And my dad, who was the teacher, was dead at 62 years old. He died of cancer.
Wow.
And I want to see my grandkids grow up, and I feel better when I eat well, and I feel better when I exercise. And I also, it's not just about me, I do put myself out there. And even if one person got something from it, to me, that's a win. Even if Mike is the only person that goes like, dang, well, Adam's doing that. Like, come on. Like, he looks happy and healthy and eating great. And like, he shares his story. Like, I can do that too. And, people, it's like what I talked about when I first got on Twitter. It's a little nervily when you first put that little first tweet out there, that first picture, but people want to connect. People want to not even be inspired. People want to know that there's other people out there thinking about them. I'm on Pacific Standard Time, and I'm up at 4:00, and you're in Central Time. Well, it's 6:00, and we're running at the same time. And that's like, dang, yeah, somebody else is doing what I'm doing, and I'm starting the day off right. And, I don't do it to brag. And if people think that, then they just don't know me, and they don't have the right, mentality with it. I do it to share. And then I meet people in person, and they tell me their stories. Or I'll be in Missouri, and somebody's like, hey, you're speaking here tomorrow. Do you want to meet at 5:00 and go for a run? I can't tell you how many random educators that I've never met meet me at my hotel, and we go run 5 miles, 7 miles, 8 miles. And they're thanking me for running with them. And I'm like, no, you got it all wrong. Thank you for meeting me to go for a run.
That's awesome. Yeah.
You know what? There's a lot of garbage going on in our world, and there always is, and there always will be. And when you can make those special connections, and you can spend some quality time with somebody, that is what makes our world a better place.
100%.
So, Adam, in your book, Kids Deserve It, there's a quote it's shared often on Twitter. Kids deserve an excited adult. They need someone who's ready to explore and laugh with them all day. They want and need us to come to school every day, ready to surround them with love, encouragement, and hope. Now, this is way easier said than done, especially like you were just talking about, not just at the beginning of the school year when you have, you have that motivation, you have the thing, but in the doldrums of February. What are ways that we as educators can be our best selves every single day?
So I think first and foremost, we have to pace ourselves. Teaching is like a marathon. I've run 29 marathons, and I can't sprint the first 5 miles, which is, August, September, October, November, because by December, January, February, I'm burned out. I can't finish. I'm puking on the side of the road, and you both know what I'm talking about. So the first thing is you got to take care of yourself, and you got to pace yourself. You have to pace yourself. And then the second thing is I tell people when I speak, you get to be a teacher. You don't have to be a teacher. And if you don't like kids, or you don't like kids anymore, find something else to do.
Love it.
Sure.
And I think that goes to something that people go like, whoa, I can't believe he just kind of said that. But it's true though. Like, you can go work in a loan office processing paperwork in a cubicle with no windows. You get to come hang out with kids. And I had students that used to call me Mr. Happy because I was always happy. Because you know what? Like, I get to be a teacher, and I get to be a principal. And at the time that you don't like it anymore, like, you know what? Just do yourself a favor, but more importantly, do your students a favor. And go find something else to do. And I just look at it like, what other choice do you have? What other choice do you have? I mean, an NFL coach can't come into the locker room and be like, hey, yo, all right, yeah, we're playing today, blah, 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 like a multi-billion-dollar organization. You can't do that. Like, you have to come ready. And I get that, like, people's experiences are different, and they might be in a school that's toxic, or their principal is not supportive. Then go work at a different school. There's more than just one school.
Yes.
You know, like if you don't like the hospital that you're at, go find another hospital. If you don't like your car, then why'd you buy a Hyundai? Go buy a Chevy. Like it's all just, it's in our hands. And I know I'm trivial, making it trivial a little bit. It's not always as easy said than done, because you could be living in some small rural town and your family's there. I get it. But I think more often than not, we just think and we don't act. And that goes back to Mike, what you said is like, stop talking and start doing. And I've been saying that for years, like, stop complaining about your principal. Like I did, I went and got my admin credential, and I wasn't a perfect principal. Obviously nobody is, or at least try to improve. Complaining is not a strategy. So take that out of your lexicon, take it out of a habit, be results oriented in your approach. And I think that just covers so many things, personally and professionally. Got to pace yourself. So key.
100%. So I'm involved in a few organizations up here in Southern Ontario that are working hard in the coding and robotics space, on encouraging and empowering girls specifically to feel comfortable and safe doing that. And I was I was a computer science teacher before I left the classroom last year, and always tried to make sure that the girls in my class specifically felt confident and capable, mostly because they actually were. They were, in fact, some of my, over the years that I taught computer science, the girls in my class were incredible, inspiring, even absolutely amazing. I suspect that this, that we have a similar idea, and you wrote, empower our girls. And I suspect that the driving force was similar, this idea of encouraging and empowering girls to feel comfortable in space, safe doing some of these things, especially things that might be outside of their perceived norm, I suppose I'll say, with computer science being a really good example of that.
Yeah, that book came about because my first year as a principal, this is a very fortuitous question, I taught a coding class. And this was before code.org even came out. And I talk about it in the book. I had 20 kids sign up, and I had one girl sign up, and it hit me in the face. And I was like, what is going on? Why is there only one girl sign up? And I recruited other girls. I said, I want you, and I want you. And I call parents. And this is not a new topic. Women CEOs are underrepresented. Women in politics, startups, everything. And Lynn Colon, who is a first-generation citizen of this country, she's from Puerto Rico. We wrote that book together, and she was expected to be a housekeeper when she grew up. Her family in Puerto Rico said, when you grow up, Lynn, you're going to be a housekeeper. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to have a different path for myself. And we just want to start the conversation. And the conversation has been started that it's different and it needs to be different. And we need to be intentional about it. It can't just be like, well, nobody signed up. Like, no, not okay. Not okay. We talk about diversity and equity. Well, how about our girls? And, and everybody deserves it. Everybody does. But we just really wanted to put a magnifying glass on this because the data is out there. This is not a research-based book. It's a book, and we got other educators from around the country to submit their story and their experience to just go, you know what, think about it a little bit differently and talk amongst your people. And that's why they have girls that code and Black girls that code. I mean, there's a reason these programs exist. It's because there's a gap with girls, not just in technology, but in leadership opportunities. A great book is Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. She's the COO of Facebook. I think any educator should read that book. Anybody with a daughter needs to read that book. It's not a new book. I've read it probably 5 times and gifted it probably 10 times. And she talks about her own journey with being a powerful woman in leadership and what that looks like and the struggle that it's been. And we need to continue this conversation for sure.
So Adam, if our audience members want to be able to connect with you online or be able to find your books or maybe even invite you to come speak, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah.
How do they reach you?
I'm all over the internet, but Mr. Adam Welcome on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, mradamwelcome.com. And I got a YouTube channel, and I put up content basically every single day on multiple different platforms. I do speak. So if your organization, your conference, your district is looking for somebody to work with, I do leadership deep dives and work with leaders and make them feel really uncomfortable, all from a growth standpoint. The cool thing about being a speaker is like I get to leave at 3:00. So I say things that your people may say a little bit differently or with more hesitation just because I'm from out of town and I have a different level of credibility, but all obviously with positive intentions in mind. So I just want to say thank you guys for having me on. I've had a podcast off and on for the last 4 years. And I know that scheduling guests, connecting and the pre and the post and all that stuff, I think more people need podcasts. Podcasting is the new blogging. 10, 15 years ago, everybody had a blog. In 2019, it is so easy to record content. You can do it in a complex way. You can do it in a simple way. If you're a teacher, you're listening to this, start a podcast for your classroom. Start a podcast with book reviews. If you're a librarian, you need a podcast. If you're a principal or you're a superintendent, you need a weekly podcast. Also record the podcast. So you put that content on YouTube and Facebook and wherever people listen to podcasts. It is 2019. We have to be doing things differently. We can't be doing things the way we've always done them. Because if we do, Blockbuster, Toys R Us, we can't go out of business, but we can become obsolete for our students, and we cannot allow that to happen.
That's it. That's exactly it. Adam, thanks so much for joining us. This has been amazing. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks for having me, man. Keep rolling, guys. Keep rolling.
Thanks for listening to On Education. My name is Glenn Irvin. My co-host is Mike Washburn. On Education is part of the Education Podcast Network. You can listen to this show and many others by great educators like Jennifer Gonzalez, Matt Miller, and many more by visiting edupodcastnetwork.com. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website at oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at oneducationpod. Mike is at Mr. Washburn on Twitter, and I can be found at Irv Spanish. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/oneducationpod. We're also on Instagram at oneducationpod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. This helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Classcraft, for supporting us. Check out classcraft.com/oneducation to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening, stay awesome, and see you soon.